All right, I'm going to share my screen and then I'm going to be doing a little bit of talking. Let me know if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. Okay, perfect. So today we are going to be looking at storage account. So this is where we are going to start. We'll be talking a little bit about storage account. What is storage accounts all about? So I'll explain to the best of your understanding. Then we are going to go into the Azure portal. Then we are going to be doing some interesting stuff today. So today I plan to do 7 labs. So hopefully if everything goes as planned, we are going to have 7 labs covered by the end of today. So what are we going to be looking at in this lesson? We are going to be looking at the overview of Azure Storage Architecture, what it is all about. We are going to talk about the storage account in Azure. We are going to look at Azure Storage when it comes to IaaS scenarios. IaaS scenario simply means infrastructure as a service. And what do we know about infrastructure as a service? It's a virtual machine. So we are going to be looking at Azure Storage in infrastructure as a service scenario. We saw that already. That is data digs. The digs part of Azure Storage is the part of IaaS scenarios. Then we're going to be talking about some Azure tools for storage management. What are some of the tools that we can use that has been provided for us to use in order to connect to our storage accounts? Those are the things we are going to be looking at today. At some point, we are going to download one of the tools, right? But when we reach that phase of download, because of your connection and because of the internet, you take a pause, no download, then after the class, you can download so that your connection will not be interrupted. So the objectives of today's lesson and today's class, after this module, this is what you'll be able to do. You'll be able to, one, explain the purpose and the architecture of the Azure Storage Account. You'll be able to describe, create, manage Azure Storage Account. You'll be able to identify the role of Azure Storage in infrastructure as a service scenario. And you'll be able to describe common tools for managing Azure Storage. Now, this storage we are talking about, it is not anything new. It will never be new. We are just bringing in the knowledge of the cloud and the knowledge of technology into what you already know. In every person's house or in your life, there is somewhere where you are storing your stuffs, right? That is your storage. It can be your closet, you store your clothes. It can be your pantry, you store your food, whatever, wherever you are storing stuff. That is your storage. Now, the whole idea about internet or information technology, as we define, we said it is the use of computers or software application to store, secure, process, right? Many other things, data or information for it to reach the end user. So at some point, we are now looking at the storing part of that information technology. It is the use of computer software application to store. So now this part is about the store. Where do we store the information we discuss about? Where do we store the data that you are going to be working with as far as you build your career? That is a storage account in the cloud. So lesson one of today, we are going to look at the overview of Azure Storage Architecture, right? After this session, you will be able to understand the basics. So can we start? So the topics, just for you to know. Topic number one, we are going to have a smooth discussion when it comes to what type of data can you store in Azure. The next, I am going to introduce Azure Storage Account. Then we are going to look at the different architecture when it comes to Azure Storage. Then we are going to look at the architectural component of Azure Storage. So now, before we dive deep into this chapter, I'll first of all ask you guys some basic questions, assuming that we have been dealing with storage. We have been storing stuff on your laptop. You have been creating files. You have been creating folders. You have been downloading things on the internet. You have been downloading movies. You have been downloading audios, music to listen. where are you storing them, right? You know where to do it on your laptop. So now the discussion question we are going to have before we go deeper is what types of data can you store in Azure? No answer is wrong. So unmute yourself and give me your answer. What type of data can you store? What kind of data can you store in Azure? Okay, file storage. Anthony said file storage, correct? What kind of data can you store? You guys need to be very fast and very interactive. What kind of data can you store? You guys are dealing with data every day. So you don't know what you guys are dealing with. What kind of data can you store? User profile. User profile. User profile. Okay. What kind of data can you store? You guys are busy typing. It's easier. Unmute yourself and speak out. Purity, you're muted, but I can see I'm all moving. Pictures,
Can I talk?
use, document, PDF, document, databases. Yes, who wants to talk? Yeah, databases, customer records.
I want to talk. Can I talk?
Yes, right on, right on, right on.
Customer database, uh, banking transactions, sales records.
Perfect. So there are a lot of data that we can store. There are a lot of things that we can store. So anything you are doing, there are data that are being stored somewhere that you are making use of them. Either data that is being stored by a certain application that you are using. When you log into a certain account, for example, Facebook, and they're asking you to sign up, you sign up with your name, you sign up with your password, and then they're asking you for your date of birth and all those things. Where do you think they are storing them? They are storing them somewhere on the Facebook database. So today we are going to be seeing some of those things that the companies they are using to store your information, to store your data. So what are the primary challenges with storing data on premises? Who can try this? What are the primary challenges with storing data on premises? What are the primary challenges? Who can try? Who can try? What are the primary challenges with storing data on premises? We discussed this in depth.
Uh, Malwares. We
Okay.
experience malwares. Yeah.
All right. That's one. Antivirus. Who else? Those who had issues with their laptop that it got formatted. That's a reason.
Um, Insufficient disk space.
Insufficient disk space. You are running out of storage. You need more storage to run one or two applications. You need more disks to store additional stuff that you're working on. But when you look on your laptop, they are telling you you have no space. What can you do? You need to spend money to reach out to the next store to buy additional disks. That costs money. You need to give it to a technician. If you don't know hardware maintenance, you need to give it to someone to help you and change. Those are some of the challenges. If one of your jigs, if it scratches, what happened? Everything will be lost. That's why those who formatted their laptop, you had no other option than to format. And in the course of format, what happened? The stuff that you had on your machine, they were not still there. Those are some of the challenges when it comes to on-prem. Now, the challenges you guys listed, in your opinion, which of these challenges can be addressed by storing data in Azure? Which of these challenges can be addressed by storing data in Azure? Which of the challenges mentioned?
For insufficient disk space, I think scaling up will help that scenario, that issue.
There we go. Scaling up will help that situation. We have scaling. It says scaling is the adjustment of resources. We have two types of scaling, vertical, horizontal. Vertical simply means either you are adding CPU, you are adding RAM, or you are adding jigs. So when you add a jigs, you are scaling up. That's the meaning of scaling up. She spoke about that is study. Scaling up, scaling down, scaling in, scaling out. So they're asking the interview to differentiate between scaling up and scaling in. They are two different things, right? So when you study, you will know these things. Now, what are the main types of on-premises data? What are the main types of on-premises data? All the data that you have been storing, what are the main types? In your opinion, which of these types of data are suitable for storing in Azure? So everything we are going to be discussing in the cloud with regard to Azure storage is not from any space. It's from what you have been doing every day on your laptop, what you have been doing on your phone. When you're going to the market to purchase a phone, what are you looking at? You're looking at the storage. Can this phone store my documents? Can they be used in the long run? They will not run out of space very fast. That is why there's 256, 512, 128 when it comes to gigabyte for a phone. You have 8 gig, you have 16 storage. So assuming for you to understand that storage is not new, the storage you know is the same storage for your data. So now we are going to practicalize what you know. So the first things first, introduction to Azure. What is Azure storage now? You know the meaning of Azure. You know the meaning of storage. Now you bring the two together. It will give you the definition of Azure storage. So Azure storage, it is a massively scalable store for your data, object, disk storage for Azure Virtual Machine, as we saw last week, files, reliable messaging, and non-relational databases. Let me break it down. Azure Storage is a massively scalable store. It is a big scalable. It can be adjusted. Where you can store your data, where you are storing your data, it can be adjusted. You can increase as well as you can decrease for your data objects, be it your files, be it your audios, be it your videos. Those are the data objects. Then last week we saw how we created a data disk and we partition. That is a disk storage for Azure Virtual Machine. What are the different types of files? You know, there are a lot of them. Same as messages, your messages can be stored. I'll be talking about a queue. For example, you have your phone. When you send messages from one person to another, what are you doing? Where are the messages being stored? You will know today. Then we have non-relational tables. It falls under non-relational databases, where we'll be talking about DB. We'll be talking about MongoDB. Those are non-relational databases. When we go into databases, we'll be differentiating the two. We have a non-relational database and then we have relational database. Those that have been doing their research, you'll be hearing about MySQL, Post, Post, uh, PostSQL, all those different databases. Now they have been structured into two types. So all the different stuff that you have been using, the ones that you have not been using, there is something that is being stored in them. Where are they being stored? this is what we are talking about. When you download an application, when you install that application, what is being stored? There is something that is being stored. Where is that something being stored? When you create a virtual machine, it is being running. When you create an Oracle VirtualBox, they're asking you for the disk size, the RAM size. Why are they asking? Because they need to store what is running. When you install an operating system on your laptop, that is why there is disk C, because that disk C is being used to store the operating system, the source code of that operating system that is being running. Today, we are going to build a simple application using Visual Studio Code. That source code of that application is going to be stored somewhere. Storage. So Azure Storage is a massively scalable store for data object, data storage for Azure Virtual Machine, files, reliable messaging, and non-relational databases, right? So Azure Storage provide these. Now answer to the questions that was being asked before this slide. Why do we store things using Azure Storage? What are some of the challenges that you guys answered on premises? Why are companies moving from on-prem to the cloud? Now, these are some of the reasons. At the level of storage account, it provides durability and availability. We know how to explain them. It provides scalability. We know it minimizes the management overhead. The stress of managing the storage has been reduced. There is global access. So wherever I store my stuff, wherever I am, I can have access to it. By the definition of cloud computing, it is a dual distribution. Wherever you are, it can be accessible. Then there is security. The data you store, they can be secure. How can they be secure? We can know. We can secure by encrypting the data, right? We can secure by taking it out of private access and making it private, taking it out of public access and making it private. That is how it can be secure. Then we are going to look now at the important part of Azure storage. Now, the question of what kind of data can you store in Azure, or what kind of data have you been storing when it comes to on-premises? So to now, we are going to know the core data services that are being used to store data. There are 5 of them. The last one you all know because we did the last one last week. The last one is the disk. It is called Azure Disk. Now, we are going to bring in 4 other types that we are going to be discussing, and we are going to be looking at labs with respect to the 5. The first one, we have the Azure Blob. The Azure Blob is also called the containers. A container simply means where you store your object. What are the objects they are talking about? They are talking about files, the different types of files that you know, be it a PDF, be it a Word, be it a PowerPoint, be it audio, be it videos. Those things you can store them when it comes to an Azure Blob. So an Azure Blob by definition is simple. Objects store for text and binary data. Binary data and text that you know of, you can store them when it comes to Azure Blobs. So it also supports a big data analytics when it comes to data lake storage. When you go deeper now, you'll be seeing these names. Now we have the second one. It is called the Azure Files. Just from the name Files, it simply means where you manage your file shares, right? Remember, I told you we spoke about file share last week, though we haven't done the lab yet. We are going to do it today, so you have a good understanding of what Azure File is. So on-prem, if I want to share a data with my co-workers, right, in the same network. So if I want to share data, what am I going to do? I am going to create what is known as a file share. Now, when I create what is known as a file share, it simply means I am going to create a folder in my whatever partition, be it the C or be the D or be the E, depends on wherever the file is located. I'm going to create a folder. Then I'm going to make that folder to become a shareable folder. There are different steps which I showed you guys. Now, when you make a folder to become a share folder, there is a path that is being attached to that folder. Now, that path now can be given to the different co-workers within your network for them to have access to your file. But those different steps in order to make a file share, they have their challenges. Now, those challenges now they have been looked upon and they have been rectified. Now, for us, we're facing those challenges on-prem. Now, in the cloud, we have what is known as Azure Files. So, Azure Files is being used to manage file shares. So, Azure Files gives you and I the capability to set up a highly available network file share that can be accessed by using a protocol, a standard protocol called SMB. SMB. SMB stands for Server Message Block. And there is a port number for that protocol. As you guys know, every protocol there is a port number. So what is the port number for those who did the assignment? What is the port number for SMB? Who can answer? What is the port number for SMB? Good one, easy. 445. So without this port number, there will be no way you'll be able to access the file share. This file share, before I will be able to share stuff to you guys, this file share has this port number or this protocol SMB has to be open in your firewall. By default, it has been blocked. But as we go ahead with the labs, you are going to see how I am going to open up this port on the firewall. That is file share, right? Now, the next is the queue, the Azure Queue. The Azure Queue is for storing your messages. The Azure Queue are a service which allows you to store and to retrieve your messages. For those that are sending messages, when you delete a message, you can undo, right? That's where when you delete an email, you see undo. Why is it possible to undo? Because when you delete, there is a place where it is being stored. It is called a queue. So in Azure, it is called Azure Queue. So queue messages can be as large as 64 kilobyte. 64 kilobyte. And a single queue can contain 1 million of messages. Then the last but not the least, we have the Azure Table. The Azure Table is storage of structured non-relational databases. For those dealing with databases, those data you input when it comes to databases, they are being stored under Azure Table. Non-relational databases, they are being stored under Azure Table. So the table storage is stores large amount of non-relational structure, or when you go deeper, you're going to be hearing of NoSQL. NoSQL data. NoSQL stands for non-relational databases. That's what you use. Then the last one, we have the Azure Disk. The Azure Disk, it is a block level storage for Azure virtual machine. Is it different from what we saw last week? No, it is the same. The disks you have in your virtual machine, it falls under Azure Disk. So there are 4 core data services, or there are 5 core data services you need to know how to use them, when to use them. We have the first, the Azure Blob. Where are your objects being stored? Your objects, your files, your pictures, your videos, your documents, your text, they are being stored under Azure Blobs. Now, when it comes to managing file shares, moving your data from one system to another, you can make use of a file share. and where or how can you make use of this file share by making use of Azure files. Now, when it comes for you storing your messages, where are your messages being stored? Azure Queue. When it comes to storing your structured non-relational databases, where are they being stored? Azure Tables. When it comes to the disks of your virtual machine, where are they being stored? They are being stored under Azure disks. Simple. So this side brings um, goes further to explain the different stuffs we have discussed. So the first, an Azure storage is one of the many Azure data services which include storage for Azure virtual machine. Understand first before we do the lab. We have storage for Azure virtual machine. There are two of them. We have disks and we have files. When we come to unstructured data storage, we have three of them. We have queues hosted by Azure Storage. We have Azure Data Log Storage, Azure Data Lake Storage hosted by Azure Storage. Then we have blobs still by Azure Storage. Then now we have the structured data storage. Remember, I told you when it comes to databases, there are two types. We have the structured and where we have the unstructured. In another sense, it is called the relational databases and the non-relational databases. So when it comes to the relational or the structured data storage, we have the Azure Secure database, we have the Azure Synapse Analytics, then we have the table. The table falls under Azure Storage, right? So looking at this diagram, these are the two structures of how your data in Azure can be managed. Okay. Now going further, we are going to look at the architecture of Azure Storage. Very soon, I'm going to stop the talking and then we are going to move into the lab. We have the Azure Storage architecture. Under the Azure Storage architecture, they will just bring in some of the things that you know of. Now, they are going to link them into the Azure Storage. Now, there are key design features of Azure Storage that you need to know. The first of them is the storage or the strong consistency. We know the meaning of consistency, doing things repeatedly all the time. The more you are doing it, the more you stay consistent. So in Azure Storage provides strong consistency, high availability, and partition tolerance. What defines consistency is that at the moment there is an interruption to the replication, at the moment when there is an interruption, based on the consistency, there is what is called replication that is going to occur. Wherever you store your stuff, so what you store, it is going to be replicated based on the availability or based on the region you have selected. The second, we have the public read access to a container and its blob. Azure Storage allows you to enable anonymous public read access to a container. And we are going to see as we progress, I am going to create a storage account. In that storage account, I am going to create a container. In that container, I am going to upload a file or a picture, right? By default, no person will be able to access what I am going to upload because it is being set as private. The anonymous block storage has been disabled. So what you need to do to make what you have uploaded to be public, I will need to make the anonymous block object to be enabled. Step one, I will need to change it from private to public. That's how you can play with your storage account. Then the second is the global and the scalable namespace. This you have to know. Storage account is a global resource, which simply means two persons cannot have the same storage name. Two persons cannot have the same storage name. So if I create a storage account, for example, Yantech Store, Easy cannot create the same name with Yantech Store, right? Lawrence cannot create the same name with Yantech Store. So my name is my name, your name is your name, the uniqueness of the namespace. And Once you create a storage account, it can be globally accessible if you give the permission. But if you use the same name, it is going to fail because another person is using that name. So storage account is the same like a public IP, right? By definition, it is a unique. Unique simply means two persons cannot have the same IP. Storage account, two persons cannot have the same name. Okay. The last but not the least, we have disaster recovery. We know the meaning of disaster recovery. Azure Storage stores container data across multiple data centers that might be 100 miles apart. We discussed that. We discussed about the data center, we discussed about availability zone, and we said these data centers in an availability zones, they are not in the same place, they are not close together. They have been isolated some distance away. Why? Because if there is a problem with one, there is another one that is going to be running. If one data center is in Nairobi, there's another data center in another city in Kenya. If Nairobi is being faced with an earthquake or is being faced with light issues, the other city will not be facing that same issue at that same point in time. That is why when setting up an infrastructure, you have to be thinking about those things in place. So disaster recovery is one of the benefits of making use of storage accounts. Then the last, we have multi-tenancy, and then the cost of storage. Multi-tenancy and cost of storage simply means it helps to reduce the storage cost, which simply means if you have 500 gig or 250 on your laptop, you're running an application. That application just needs 100 gigabyte, but in the market physically there is no 100 gig hard drive, right? There is no 200 gig hard drive. So for you to continue production, you need to buy more than you need. So you either go and buy another 500 or you buy another 1 tera. They are not having the same price tag. You need to spend more to purchase those things. But whereas in the cloud, what happens if I have a 100 gig data disk running on my virtual machine and I need additional 50 to complete my work? What am I going to do? I will just simply go to the setting of my virtual machine. I click on disk, I click on add disk, and I set up 50, and I save and I store and I partition. That is it. So those are the things that comes in when it comes to Azure Storage to solve some of the challenges that every person, individual, corporate, companies, organizations are facing. Are we together? So these architectural components of Azure Storage, they have two production systems, and these two production systems, they consist of two things. The first one, we have it as the storage stamp. The second one, we have it as a location service. This is where I am going to stop the talking. The first one, we have the storage time. The storage time simply means it consists of a cluster of multiple racks. Those that have ever been into a data center or those that they have ever seen a data center. Let me show you how it looks like. Anthony keeps asking for share screen notes. I will not share the PowerPoint. Everything is in the Microsoft lane. Go to the Microsoft lane and you access what I am presenting and even more. So if I show you a data center, for example, share my screen. Okay, so you see, when you hear of a data center, this is how it's being structured, right? This is how different companies are structuring it. All right. Now, when you hear of a rack, these, for example, what I'm pointing, these are different. For example, these ones you are seeing here, it can be there are switches and routers that they have been put together. You see how they have been nicely aligned and nicely structured. What is being used to put these things together, then call them a rack, right? Then call them a rack. So let me see if I can show you guys how a rack look like. Let me see a data center rack. All right, there we go. All right, you see, when you have a rack, this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. You see the building where you put in either your router, you put in either your switch. So this is how it looks like. You put in your server. So you have to put them in order. So to make the data center to be neat. So you call it a rack. So this is a rack. There are multiple of them. So this is how a data center looks like. So for those who have the opportunity to see a data center very soon, be it at the level of your internship, they'll normally take you into this is our data. This is a rack, for example, a good one. This one they are still building up. So you see there is a place where all the CAT cables they are going to be passing, all the distribution cables they are going to be passing, and then there is a house in the rack where you can put in your switch. You see compute AI storage. This is a switch. You see power shelf, multiple supply, battery backup. So everything, CDU, everything is being arranged in the form of that rack. So that is how it looks like. So us now talking about the storage stamp, we said it consists a cluster of multiple racks of storage nodes where each rack is built out as a separate fault domain with redundant networking and power. So each of these different storage um, core services we are going to be talking about, they are being structured when it comes to production in two ways. The storage stamp is where we bring in the different storage nodes and we put them into multiple racks. Why are we putting them into multiple racks? Because we want to avoid any disaster. We want to avoid any issues. How do we avoid these issues? How do we avoid these disasters? By setting the multiple racks in the form of clusters in what we call a fault domain. A fault domain simply means we have a cluster of different storage nodes. So if there's a problem with one node, then the other node it is going to help, right? When we discuss about availability zone in chapter 3, availability set in chapter 3, you will hear me talking about update domain and fault domain. Now, when you are in a company and that company wants to update their system, they are not going to update all their systems at once. They are going to update one system after another, one system after another. Why are they doing that? Because if they update all the systems together, then customers they are going to be shut down for a certain time being. But if update one system after another, when one system is running through an update, there is another system that is going to be used for production. That is called an update domain. A fault domain simply means if there's a problem with one of the rack, then there is another rack that is going to be carrying the production. So while they are fixing the rack based on the issues, then there is another couple of racks that will be there to handle development and production. That is called a fault domain. The second is a location service. This location service now manages all the storage stamp and the account namespace across all the stamps. So the location service itself is distributed across two geographical locations for its own disaster recovery. Are we together? So there are a lot of things for us to discuss, but at this point, I'm going to reduce the talking, then I'll bring you guys into the Azure portal so we can start doing what we have explained. So the more we do them, the more you will understand, right? All the core services we have been talking about, You are going to see them right now. So if you have two screens, if you do have two screens, log into your Azure portal. But if you have just one screen, hang in, follow what I am doing. If you have any question, go ahead, raise up your hand. I'm going to see you. If you have any chat or anything to write, put it on the chat. I'm going to see what you have seen. Now to my Azure portal. Okay. All right. To the Azure portal, we are going to start by creating an Azure account. But how do you create an Azure account? So let me bring it this way. All right. Perfect. Any question so far before we move to the lab? Any question? If you're all good, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, storage account. Now, for us to create a storage account, there are two ways for us to do it. The same as when creating any other resources. So I will go to my search, step one, right? And I'll search for storage account. And there we go. We have it here. Or I can go to my three horizontal. Storage account is always being used. So if I come here, you will see storage account as well. If you want to know more about storage account, for example, you want to know more about storage account, you see I have explained what I need to explain for you guys to understand what storage account is all about. But it doesn't end there. If you want to know more, you click on learn more. When you click on learn more, it is going to load and it's going to open you storage account, and a whole lot of stuffs will be given to you. So if I scroll down here, I want this guy to take me to Microsoft Learn, right? Where I can know more about the storage account. You see, we have the Learn here. So I'm going to click on the Learn. When I click on the Learn, it's going to bring me in this documentation. Now in this documentation, I am seeing different stuffs, right? I am seeing different stuffs, and then I am seeing the category. When it comes to storage account, it falls under the storage category. So if I click on storage, what are we going to see? How to archive storage, Azure Backup, Azure Blob storage. We have explained this guy. So I want to click directly into the storage account. You see, this is storage. These are the different stuff that we are going to be looking at. So if I click on storage, now under storage, what do we have? A whole lot of stuff that you can learn. So this is where you have to start. Introduction to Azure Storage. I will click on this guy. Once I click on this guy, Anthony, you're asking for the slide. This is a slide. They'll give you the definition of Azure Storage. They'll give you the benefit of Azure Storage. They'll give you the different core services, what I have explained. They'll go down, they'll explain everything they have to explain. This is how you learn. Study the ones you know. If you want to know more, you see, if you want to know more, these are stuff. Okay. All right. So now let's start. I want to create an Azure Storage account. We know too well that before you create any resource, what do you need first? Before you create any resource, what do you need first? I need an answer from someone. Before you create any resource or resources, what do you need to create first?
Resource group.
You need to create a resource group. And just so you all know, you guys are not practicing. I see the Azure portal. I control Azure portal. You guys are not practicing. You guys will not have the Azure portal or our Azure portal for life. Make use as you have it. When you create, when you are done, you delete. It's simple. There is a project on Discord. That project, it contains a lot. That project contains a lot. So if you go to project, you will see there's a document I sent. There's a document I sent. This is it here, right? The last day to submit is the 26th. So I gave you guys time because it is both answering some questions and doing some labs. All right, for us to create an Azure portal, the first thing for us to create is a resource group. We said a resource group is a container of resources. So whatever resources we are creating, they are supposed to be in a resource group. And we also said we can create a resource group before and within. So I can start by creating a resource group the same as I can click on storage account. For me to proceed, or normally request me to create a storage account. If I don't have an existing one, right, I can still do it there. So I will proceed by clicking on create. Let me take it over again. I want to create a storage account. So that is the first lab for today. Lab number 1 for those writing. Create a storage account. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 labs to do under this chapter. So I want to create a storage account. So I will click on, I'll go to my search. I'll search for storage account. I'll go to the 3 horizontal, either ways of your choice. You click on storage account. Once you click on storage account, you will see a little description they have given to you. You go ahead and you click on create. Once you click on create, it is going to load and then it is going to bring you to the steps that are needed. Now, since as we are in this chapter, I am going to explain each of the different options you are seeing so that you understand as we are going. Now, the first one is the subscription. We know. The second one is the resource group. Do we have a resource group? No, I don't have a resource group. So what am I going to do? I am going to click on create new. I am going to click on create new. So I click on create new and I'm going to put the name. I'm going to put it Job Store. Job Store RG, right? Job Store Resource Group. Or click on OK. Now, storage account name. We said something about the name. We said the name is global and the name is unique. So how am I going to put my name? I'll put Job Store 26. The number is going to make it unique. Do not use my name. Do not use this name I'm using. If you use the name, it's going to obstruct what I'm doing here. So use your own name. For example, you can do a Marco Store 27, or you can put your date of birth anyhow you want to do it. Purity Store, Anthony Store, Easy Store, Harvey Store, Panda Store. So use your name and then put a number so you can make it unique. Then the next is the region. Every resource is being stored in a particular region. It's being running in a particular region. So I'm going to leave my central US. Next, we have the primary services, right? Or primary service. We discussed about the 4 core services, right? Or the 5. We spoke about the Azure Blob. We spoke about what again? The Azure File. We spoke about the Azure Queue. We spoke about the Azure Table. We spoke about the Azure Disk. The Azure Disk is just for virtual machines. Know that. So the primary service they're asking us is for us to choose. So I will click on the drop arrow and you will see Azure Blob Storage or Azure Data Log Storage. You will see Azure File. You will see others, right? So I am going to select the first, right? Azure Blobs. We said Azure Blobs, we can store objects, right? Binary data. That is what we want to do. So I will select the first. You get. Now, the second, we have performance. When it comes to performance, there are 2 types. We have the standard and then we have the premium, right? The standard is recommended for most scenarios when it comes to general purpose V2 accounts. I'm going to explain hopefully tomorrow when we are going deeper the different data storage. They have been structured into standard into premium into general purpose V1, general purpose V2. The general purpose V1 is a legacy. So any person doing anything in the cloud now will never see general purpose V2. The sizes that you see, they are being defined based on this general purpose. So for this lab, we are going to select the standard. Now for redundancy, redundancy simply means for redundancy, we spoke about high availability. We spoke about fault tolerance. So we can leave our data in a particular region, same as we can put our data in different regions, in different geographies. So when it comes to redundancy, we have different options, which we are going to discuss hopefully tomorrow. We have locally redundant storage. Locally redundant storage simply means it is a lowest cost option with basic protection against server rack and drive failures. Recommended for non-critical scenario. This is the one we are going to use. Then we have Joe redundant storage. We have zone redundant storage. Then we have Joe zone redundant storage. I'm going to explain all this. But for this lab, we have to select the locally redundant storage. Select the locally redundant storage. Now, once you have defined everything under the basic, go ahead and you click on next. Now, when you click on next, the next one we have is the advanced. Under the advanced, there is something called the access tier. There are three types of access tier that we are going to discuss. We have the hot, we have the cool, we have the cold. The hot simply means objects that you want to frequently have access to them. So data that you want to frequently have access to them, where are they being stored? Under which tier are they being stored? Under the hot. So the hot simply means optimized for frequently accessed data. Data that you know that you frequently use them, that you frequently access them. They are being marked under the hot. Those that we know that we are not going to be using them more often, infrequently, they are being stored under the cold, right? The ones that they are rarely being used, data that they are rarely being accessed, they are being stored under the code, the code. Now there is a last one called the archive, right? Archive simply means data that you will not use them for more than 30 days. Data that you will not use them for more than 30 days, they have been archived. They call them archive access tier. But now on the screen, we have three. And by default, we have the hot, right? So we leave this page as it is. Nothing should be changed here. Then we click on next. Next is the networking. We said when it comes to this storage account, how do you want to access your data? Do you want your data to be accessed publicly, or do you want them to be accessed privately? Accessibility of the data falls under networking, right? Public or private. So now, if you want it to be accessed publicly, you will see public network access enable, disable, or secure by perimeter. We are going to be doing labs on this, and then we are going to be explaining more. So we are going to leave it as enable. Enable simply means we want our objects to be accessed publicly. Then I'll leave the networking part as it is. Then I'll go to next. The next is the data protection. We said one of the reasons why companies are moving to the cloud is because they want to secure their data. Securing your data falls under data protection. How do you protect your data? These are the different ways which we are going to explain as we go further. But we are going to leave this part as it is. Nothing should be changed. You go ahead and you click on next. When you click on next, now you are going to see the security part of your data, right? That goes in depth for those that will be focusing more on cyber security, those that will be doing more on cloud security. So when you say to yourself you want to become a cloud security engineer, these are the stuffs that you are going to be studying. Then we are going to leave it as it is. Then we are going to click on next. Every data that you have is supposed to be encrypted. Every data that the companies are sending to you, they have been encrypted. How do you encrypt data? In Azure, there are two ways that we encrypt data. We have the Microsoft Managed Key, which simply means Microsoft is going to encrypt your data for you. We have the second option, which is known as the Customer Managed Key. Customer Managed Key simply means you are in charge of your encryption. So when you say to yourself you are in charge of your encryption, you are going to initialize another service in Azure known as the Key Vault. A Key Vault is a service in Azure that is being used to store secrets, is being used to store um, secret, is being used to store certificate, is being used to store password, is being used to store thumbprint. So everything that you use to secure something is being stored in a service called Key Vault, Azure Key Vault. I'm going to show you guys that. So when you choose to encrypt your data by yourself, you are going to be using what is called an Azure Key Vault. That is why you are seeing the keyword here, right? Select a keyword. It simply means keyword must be created. So keeping that aside, I will select Microsoft Manage Key for Microsoft to do it for us. Then the next thing I'm going to click on, I'll click on next, and we are going to have our tags. We know the meaning of a tag. We said a tag is a key value pair that is being used or is being organized for consolidated billing, right? I want to arrange my resources for them to be organized. So even if I want to set things on my dashboard or I want to check my billings, I will use the billings based on my tag. I will know which resources are, are being charged based on my tags. So I'm going to leave this guy as it is. Then I'm going to click on next. Then I'm going to click on review plus create. Then I'm going to click on create. And that is just how to create a storage account. Very simple and direct. So let's wait for it to run. It's still running. Okay. So I am going to click on go to resource, as we know. Now, when you click on go to resource, the first thing you will see is always the overview page of that resource, right? So let me take a few seconds and explain the overview page. So in the overview page, first of all, from the top, you have the upload, you have the open in Explorer, which I'm going to explain. You have, excuse me, you have delete, which simply means you can delete the resource. Then you have move. Move here is going to be a topic under migration, where I'm going to show you guys how to move resources from one resource group to another, how to move resources from one subscription to another. And then if you want to refresh stuff, you can refresh here, right? And all the likes. Now, this storage account, we have a resource group, we have the location as we know, then we have the properties. You see the different properties. We have the block services. Remember, we said when it comes to Azure Storage, how many services do we have? We have 4 of them. Though we have 5, but when it comes to this Azure Storage structure, we are going to have 4 because the Azure disks The Azure Disk is a blob storage for a virtual machine. Remember that it is a blob storage for a virtual machine. So you see, we have the we have the blob service, right? We have the file service, we have the queue service, then we have the table service. Now, none of these have been created yet. So if you see, none of these have been created yet. That is going to be our next lab. So in this storage account, we have data storage, right? The core services. We have containers. Remember, I told you Azure Blob is the same like a container for your objects. So I want to create a container. Next lab, I want to create a container. So write down create blob container. How to create a blob container. How to create a blob container. So for us to create a blob container, as we know by definition, I am going to click on container. Enjoy the beauty of storage accounts now. We are going deeper. So I'll click on containers. Once I click on containers, whenever you create a storage account, there is a container that is being created called the logs. This log is being used to gather information about the storage account used for monitoring, right? So I am going to add a container. I want to create a container. I am going to click on add container. When I click on add container, they are going to bring me into a new panel to the left, or is it the right? Then I'm going to put the name of the container. I'm going to put it as tech data. I'm going to put as tech data. If you look here, you will see anonymous access level. You see private. This private simply means anything I upload in this container, it will not be viewed publicly. Can we change? Yes, but by default, they have set the stuff to be private. So if you want to make it public, it is based on you. So I am going to go ahead and I'll click on create. Once I click on create, my guy has been created. You see, take data. Now, this is the container. It is the same like a folder. There is no file, no document, nothing has been stored inside this container. Now we want to store some things inside this container. What are we going to do? I am going to click on tech data. Inside tech data now we have no items, be it files, be it videos, be it pictures. What am I going to do? I am going to upload something from my local system, from my PC. So I am going to click on upload. I'll click on upload, right? Then I will click on browse for files. Browse for files simply means it'll take me to my file explorer. So if I click here, you see they are going to bring my file explorer. Have you seen? Then I am going to depend on what I want to share to whosoever I want to share to. So I will go to my pictures, right? In my pictures, I am going to pick up something, right? I am going to pick up a photo. Then I'm going to click on open. Once I click on open, you see it has been added. Then I'm going to click on upload. Now, when I click on upload, what do you see? I have uploaded an object, right? I have uploaded an object. Do you guys know what I've uploaded? No, but I know what I have uploaded. Let's say I'm working with Purity in the same company. Now I need to share with Purity what I have uploaded so that she can have access to. So that she can have access to. But right now, if I share that with Purity, for example, this is a link that I can share with Purity. If I copy this link and I want to share with Purity, Purity, do this very fast. I'm sending the link to the chat. Anyone can click on it. If I send this link on the chat, anyone can click on it. Let me know what you will see from your side. I've sent it through the chat. When you click on it, tell me what you see. error. You see, we have error. So it's the same. If I go to a new tab on my browser and I paste that link and I do enter, what do we see? We are seeing error message, right? We are seeing the XML file giving us an error message. Why is it giving us an error message? It is giving us an error message because by Anonymous, this guy has been set as disabled. So I cannot access this guy publicly, but can I access this guy privately? Yes. So if I click on edit, what am I going to see? I am going to see what I uploaded. So you see, internally, I am seeing what I uploaded, but publicly, I cannot see. You get? All right, so how can we make this guy publicly accessible? There are two things for us to do. The first thing, by default, the block anonymous of a storage account is disabled. So the first thing you have to do is to enable it. How do you enable the block anonymous storage? I will simply go to my storage account. I'll simply go to my storage account. Under my storage account, I will click on overview. Once I click on overview, we said blob anonymous storage. It falls under blob services, right? So this is my blob service. So I'm going to look for that blob anonymous access. When I look at it, this is a guy here. Blob anonymous access. What do we have? Disable. So I have to enable this guy first. So I will click on disable. I'll click on disable. It's going to load. Then I have to look for blob anonymous storage. This is it here. You see, blob anonymous storage. Then I'm going to click enable. Once I click enable, I have to save it. So I will click on save. Once I click on save, I'll wait for some few seconds for it to be updated. Once it has been updated, step number 2. The step number 2 now, I'll go back to that container, right? But before you go back, you have to refresh for the system to reflect the changes. So let me go ahead and refresh my portal. All right. Once I refresh my portal, I will click on containers. When I click on containers, I'll go back to this my container. Or I'll click on this my container. If I check the box, if I check this box, I can do it from here. So this is what I want to make public. If I check this box, you will see change access level. If I click on change access level, what are you seeing here? You are seeing private. So if I click on the drop arrow, I'm going to select the blob anonymous read only. I want you guys to see, but I don't want you guys to do any changes. I want you guys just to be able to read. So I'll click on the second option, then I'll click on OK. Once I click on OK, now that access level has been changed. Now, if you click on that link that you have that I sent to you guys and see what you are going to see. If I refresh, what am I seeing now? If you do it from your side, what are you going to see? You are going to see what is on my screen. Are we good? Can you guys see now? Refresh the link I sent. Refresh it. If you can see, let me know. If you can see, yeah, definitely you have to see because it's from my side. You have to refresh. All right, let me take it again. Let me take it one step again. Someone sent a message. All right, still error. Let me take it one step again. Penda said, a little bit lost. I'm behind. Okay. Let me take it by one step. All right, this is the guy, right? I'm going to delete, right? I'm going to delete this container and I'll create a new one so you guys understand. So I'll click on delete, right? I want to delete that container. I want to delete that container. So I'm going to delete. I'll click on delete. Now we are back to normal. Okay. So now let's go ahead and delete it. Let's go ahead and create another one. Follow up. I will click on add container. Let me take it back again. We have created our storage account. When you click on go to resource, this is where it's going to bring you. For you to create a container as one of the core services, you scroll down, you click on containers. Once you click on containers, right now, by default, when a storage account is being created, there is a container create called logs that is also being created. So I want to create a new container. I'm going to click on add container. When I click on add container, they are going to give me a prompt for me to create. So I'm going to put the name. I'm going to put the name as Emaku container, for example, right? I'll put it as Emaku container. Right now, you see, they, by default, there was no way for me to do these changes because Anonymous was disabled. But now I can actually change because I have put Anonymous as enable. But let me leave it as private so you understand the different steps. So I'm going to click on create. Once I click on create and I refresh, this guy has been created. Now, this is a container. A container simply holds object, but in this container, we have no object so far. So what am I going to do? I am going to upload something from my laptop and I want to send it to you guys to see, or I want to send it publicly for it to be accessible. So I will click on upload and I will browse for something in my system. So what do I want to share? I want to share a picture. So I'll go to picture. Let me look for something else again. All right, let me share Linux. Let me share Linux. All right, so I'm going to click on upload. You see, I have uploaded Linux, right? Now, if I go into this guy, this is the link to make this guy accessible. Now, if I copy this link and I take it on my browser and I open a new tab and I paste that link and I do enter, it's giving me this error. It's giving me this error because the access level is still private, right? The access level is private. For me to make the access level, but when I click on edit, you see we have different options, which I'm going to explain. We have the overview of that object. So this is the overview of the object. Now we have the version of that object. There is no version yet because the versioning of the storage account has not been enabled. We are going to be discussing about versioning very soon. But the reason why you're not seeing any version yet because we have not enabled the versioning. And this is just the first one that we have uploaded. So if I enable versioning and I go ahead and I upload the same content of these, it's going to show me multiple versions. Then the snapshot, I can take a snapshot of my container. So the reason why we have no snapshot found is because I have not taken any snapshot. I have not enabled the snapshot. Then if I click on edit, this is the content that I have uploaded, right? It's a picture. I cannot edit now because it is a picture. If it was a file, right? If it was a script or a code, I can edit from here. Then we have the generate SAS. SAS stands for share access signature, which I'm going to explain, right? If you don't want to make your object or your container or your storage account to be publicly accessible to all, you can use what is known as a SAS. SAS stands for share access signature. So I am going to, let me not go into that one, but I'm going to explain to you guys. But what do you want um, to see? We want to see this publicly. So I am going to close this, right? This guy, I am going to click on change access level. This is my object. I'll go to change access level. I am going to change it from private and I'm going to put blob. Once I put blob, I am going to click on OK, right? And then I am going to refresh. I'll come back to this my browser and I'm going to refresh. What are we seeing? We are seeing that guy. So let me send it to you guys to see if you can access this one as well. I can go ahead and rename it, right? You see there is a space. Linux PC, there is a space. Most of the time, it is going to make the link to have a break. So if I come to this guy, the reason why I want to rename, if I copy the link and I go to Notepad++, just to show you guys. So if I come here, you see there is a space here, right? There is a space here. Oops, am I not showing? All right, you see there is a space here. We have Linux and then space PC. There is a broken gap. This broken gap can make the link to fail because it is a URL, Uniform Resource Locator. So what you want to do most of the time is to make sure there is no broken link. So since as there is a broken link, it simply means I can rename. How can you rename? You simply check the object and you click on a rename. Once I click on rename, I'm just going to, you see, I'm just going to remove that space, right? And I'll click on rename. And that is it. It has been renamed. Are we together? So if I send you guys the link right now, if I send you guys the link, if I go to chat and I send you guys the link, check out now if you can access. Let me know if you can access. I can access on my side. All right, I can see Chris. Chris can access. Lawrence, perfect. All right, so every person now will be able to access. Are we good? All right, perfect. That's the meaning of blob container. So there are a lot of things that we can do. So we are going to play a little bit with some of the things that we can do in this guy. So I am going to close this one. I am going to close this one. Now we discuss about let me go back. All right, let me come back to the storage account. This is the storage account. I'll click on overview. This is the overview, a whole lot of stuffs. Now we have the activity logs. Now under activity logs, look at what we are going to have. What have we done so far? We have created a blob container. So it's going to give us an activity log of all the stuffs we have done. Now we have the tag. Have we created any tag? No, right? We have not created any tag. Can we create a tag for the storage account? Yes, we can create. So I'll go ahead here and I can put it as, for example, I can name my tag and I'll put it as TECHUPYOUTHS. TECHUPYOUTHS, right? I'll put it as TECHUPYOUTHS and I'll go ahead and I'll apply. So I have applied a tag on my storage account. Next, we have diagnose and solve problem. If there's any problem with my storage account, I can rectify that from here. The next one is access control. What is the meaning of access control? You and I know, and I know that you know. So access control simply means I want to give access or I want to give permission for a user to access my storage account, right? So if I come here, this is a resource. So I want to give access to Stefan to access my storage account. Only my storage account. This is what I can do. I will go to row assignment. If you look at row assignment, it simply means right now, these are the different roles I have in my organization, right? But if you're looking at this, looking at the scope, no person is having permission for my storage account unless I give. So I want to give Stefan, right, access to my storage account. Or for example, Stefan is having one screen, so let me not give Stefan. Let me give access to Penda. Penda is having two screens, so he can test and see for us. So how can I give access for Penda to access my storage account? I'll go to add. I'll click on add. Then I'll click on add row assignment. When I click on add row assignment, I am going to go to, I can put it as, I can search for storage. You see, I can search for storage account. What do we have? Let me scroll down. You see, we have storage account contributor. This storage account contributor lets you manage storage accounts, including accessing storage account key, which provides full access to storage accounts data. So if I go ahead and I give him access to this storage account, it simply means the only thing he can access in my account is, the only thing he can access is storage account contributor. So if I click on this guy and I click on next, they'll ask me to select the user, the group, or service principal. I'm going to click on select members, and I'm going to search for Panda. Let me see. Yeah, that's how I created the name. Let me look for Larry. All right, you see, we have Hilary Penda. So I'm going to select and I'm going to click on select. Once I select, you see it has been added. Then I'll click on next and I'll click on review plus assign. And if I refresh, you discover now that Hilary Penda has been added as a storage account contributor. This is what is called a least privilege. When you go further, you'll be hearing of least privilege. Least privilege simply means you are giving an individual just the necessary permission that is needed to access a resource. So if he goes ahead, though he is the contributor because of TECHUPYOUTHS, but if he was not the contributor of TECHUPYOUTHS, he will see just that storage account, just Job Store 26. Nothing else he will be able to see. That is the meaning of access control. We know access control, right? So I'm going to remove. How can you remove a user to have access to whatever role or have access to whatever scope? You just go ahead, you check the box of that user, and then you do delete. So I want to remove him out of my permission. All right, good question, Hilary. Now Hilary is trying to add a role. My add role assignment says disable. Those that have been studying, those have been, who can answer the question from Hilary. He is trying to add a role, but he's showing disable. Why is he showing disable? Who can help? Who can answer that? I explained that. Who can answer that? Who can answer that?
For me, I think maybe doesn't have the arrow backward.
Okay, you're almost there. All right. The reason why he cannot do this, he cannot add row assignment, is because he is under the TECHUPYOUTHS as contributor. Differentiate between an owner and a contributor. Owner can do everything. Owner can add role to another person. But when you are a contributor, you can do everything, but you cannot add a role. That is the exception. So the reason why he cannot add, you guys cannot add, is because you all are contributors. So a contributor cannot be giving another person a role. Exactly. Okay. So asset service, we have explained. The next, we have data migration. Data migration just simply means how you migrate data from one place to another. We are going to explain that. Then we have events. Now we have this guy, storage browser. Storage browser. Storage browser now, it's no longer under preview. Everything about my storage account, I can do it under my storage preview. Sorry, my storage browser. If you look at storage browser, it shows the storage account, right? Then it shows blob container, classic file share, queues, and table. Now, if I click on blob containers, do we have a container? Yes, this is the container. So storage browser is just giving you a browser form of your storage account where you can still do the same stuff. The next one, we have the storage mover. The storage mover, it is a fully managed hybrid migration service that makes migrating files and folders into Azure a breeze. Very simple and very direct to do it, but there are some steps you need to follow in order for you to do the migration. We'll be discussing about migration very soon. Now we have another stuff very important for you to know. We have the resource visualizer. The resource visualizer is just giving you the different resources that you have done in a graphical format, in a visualized format. So we have created a storage account. So this is a storage account that we have. You see, I can drag, right? I can drag, I can do stuff. Then under the data storage, we know the form. We have containers, we have file shares, we have queues, we have tables. You know this part. Now, the next part is the security plus networking. I said you can secure your storage account as well as the networking part. So if I expand security plus networking, the first part you have here is networking. Now, under networking, I'm going to explain this part a little bit. Now, we have public access, we have private endpoint, we have network routing, and then we have custom domain. The reason why you guys can access my object I sent to you is because it is being set up under public access, right? But corporate wise, I can disable this public access, right? If I want to disable this public access, what am I going to do? I am going to click on manage. When I click on manage, what are we seeing? We are seeing enable, we are seeing disable. So I can go ahead and I disable, right? I go ahead and I disable that storage account. Now, when you disable a storage account, it simply means whatever is in that storage account, you cannot access publicly. So if I go ahead and I click on save, you see, it has been saved, right? Now, this has been marked as private. So if I go now to that object, this is the object, and I refresh. If I refresh, what are we seeing now? We are seeing back the error. Look at the error we are seeing now. Authorization failure. This request is not authorized to perform this operation. Blah blah blah. Right? Why? Because we have changed from public to private. Now, when it is being set as private, does it mean no person can access it publicly? Now, those who have access to your storage account or the things in your storage account, now they will be defined based on the security level, right? So even myself, I cannot access my own stuff. Why? Because I have disabled everything publicly. So I can go further, right? I can go further under this manage, right? In as much as I have disable, you see, I can click enable. When I click enable, I don't want you guys to have access to my object. I don't want any other network to have access apart from my network. So I am going to enable. You see, we have two options. Enable from all network. It simply means every person around the world can access what I have uploaded if I share my link. But I want just those in my network, those in my selected space, those in different countries that I have selected them to view. So I will choose the second option, right? And I'll be like, if I want easy to access this, I'll be like, send me your public IP address. What am I going to do? I am going to paste it here. I'll reach out to Stefan. Send me a public IP address. What am I going to do? I'll paste it here. I'll reach out to Panda. Send me an IP. I'll paste it. Just those I have pasted their IP address, public IP address, will be able to access my storage account. So right now, the reason why, even from my site, it is showing this error is because I disable every person. I disable even myself. So if I want to disable every person, but I want to see what I have uploaded, I am going to add, you see, I am going to leave it as enable, right? But the enable now is going to be adjusted. I am not going to enable to all network, but I'm going to enable from selected network. Then from the selected network, I am going to add, right? You see, I can create a virtual network. Those connected to my virtual network, they'll have access if I want to. But now there is no virtual network. What am I going to do? I am just going to add my IP address, my public IP address. This is my public IP address. So I'm going to click on add. Once I click on add, that is all I need for now. I am going to click on save. Once I click on save and I come back to this guy and I click on refresh, and I click on refresh. Let me refresh the portal. All right, you see, I've refreshed the portal. Now you see public network access. Public network access is showing enable from selected network. So if I come now to this guy, if that is the guy, and I click on refresh, what am I seeing? I'm seeing what I uploaded. So you guys try to access this now. Let's see. Try to access the link I sent to you guys. Let's see what you're going to have. Let me know in the chat what you can see. All right, perfect. So you see, it's giving error. So everyone is going to see error. That is the security part. That's the security part they're talking about. So you see, so there are a lot of things. So when you hear someone saying, I'm a cloud security engineer, right? These are the things they are doing. They are making sure the resources in the cloud that companies are using, customers they are getting access to, they have to be restricted. So they need someone with the experience, the expertise to come in and be doing those things so that my stuffs can be secure from third parties. My stuffs can be secure from hackers. All right. The next one we have is the endpoint. Now, this one is when you go in depth. So I will just explain, but I will not do it with you guys. But when you go deeper into your career, you will be discovering or learning this other part. Private endpoint simply means you want to have access to some of resources, some of the platform buyers. What the full mean again? Platform as a service. Platform as a service resources that they have been marked as private. Anything that has been marked as private that falls under platform as a service, you want to access them. You want to access them publicly, but there is no way for you to access publicly. So for you to make what is being marked as private, for you to access publicly, you will make use of what is called as private endpoint. So private endpoint helps you to securely, privately connect to a service or resources. How can you do it? We will not do it now, right? This is when you go deeper. Then we have network routing. Network routing is another way you route your network in order to have access to some resources. And then we have custom domain. Right now, we have no custom domain. What we have is the default domain. Default domain is a domain from Microsoft. Are we together? All right. So I was explaining that the next one we have is called the front door, and the CDN. CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. Now I'll explain why some African countries they cannot create Netflix account. What I see on my YouTube is different from what you see on your own YouTube. What is being exposed to the Western world is not the same as what is being exposed to Africans. That is why when you do some stuff on your YouTube, when you post a content that you're not supposed to post, they can block your YouTube or they can restrict you from YouTube. This is what we are talking about. This is what they are using. So we have what is called an Azure front door. Then we have what is called a content delivery network. Content delivery network, I have my certain streaming company, let's say Netflix. Now, I don't want those in Africa to be able to create accounts on Netflix. So I will simply create that application and I'll bring that application under this page, right? You see the page. Azure Front Door. This is the advanced of content delivery network. So I will bring that application. Let's assume Netflix. I will come here and I'll write the name Netflix. I will put the endpoint. The endpoint of that application, I'm going to paste it here and I'm going to click on create. Once I click on create, it is going to take me. Once we create an application, I'll show you guys, but I'm explaining for you guys to understand. Once I create, it's going to open me now the different features of that application. Then there is a place where it is called a white list and a black list. Now, those that I don't want them to have access to Netflix in this war, I'll block the country. You get the point? So if I don't want Kenya, Tanzania, whosoever to have access, I'll put in their country. I can also block individuals. So if I don't want Immaculate to have access to Netflix, I will simply take her public IP address and I blacklist it. So whatever you are trying to do inside a network, it will not work. That's how things are being done. So all these companies, you are enjoying their services, you are making use of them. They are all in the cloud. They are not private. They are in the cloud. So these ones you are seeing here, we'll come to it. I'll show you guys how to do it. Now the next one is the access key. Now, the access key simply means, for example, you see, we have two keys, right? This one now works with something. Now, let's say, for example, Purity. I have my storage account. Now, I know too whether Purity cannot access my storage account, but I want just Purity to access my storage account. Now, there is a tool that she is going to be using called the Storage Explorer that I'm going to show you guys how to download. Now, once she download the Storage Explorer, how can she access this my storage account? This is what I will do. I will simply send her the name of my storage account one, right? Then I will come into these two keys. I am going to send her the key, my key of one of them. So once I copy this key and I send to her, in the course of the Storage Explorer, she will be able to access my storage account. That is the use of the key. Now, the next one is the advanced and the more secure way from this guy. So storage key, it doesn't give you limitation. So if I give Purity access to my storage account through this method, it simply means she can have this access for a very long period of time, right? She can be doing whatever she wants to do. But corporate wise, it is not advisable. So what is advisable corporate wise is what is known as the SaaS. SaaS stands for Share Access. SaaS stands for Share Access Signature. This one simply means I am giving you access, but I am giving you access based on the time frame. So if I click on this guy, it simply means, you see, I will tell you what to access and what not to access. In my storage account, we know there are four components. We have Blob, we have files, we have queue, we have tables. Under access queue, whosoever is going to access my storage account will access all the four. You get the point? Will access all the four. But when it comes to share access signature, if I want to give Purity access to that storage account, I will say, Purity, the only thing you need to have access to is the blob. I will not say it with my mouth, but I'm going to say it by action. So I will come under here and I'm going to uncheck these three, and I'll leave just Blob. That is what I want her to see. And I'll come again, I'll be like, allow resource type. This Blob, it falls under container. I am going to check container. That's what she's going to see. I will go further. What do I want her to see? Do I want her to be able to read, write, delete, this, add, create, and all the stuff? I'll be like, no. The only thing I want her to do is to read. Okay, go ahead, uncheck the others. You get? So the only thing that should be able to do is the read. Then I will scroll down. I will scroll down. I will leave the versioning as it is. I will leave the index permission as it is. Now we have the start and the expiry date. When do I want you to see and when do I want you to stop? I am going to say today is the 24th 7 and it is 11:18. So the day that you're going to end is the 24th 7. In the next 6 hours, your permission is going to expire automatically. I will leave it as that. Then, how do I want her to access? Is it just by HTTPS or HTTP and HTTPS? I'm going to check the two. So even if the application is not secure, she will still have access to it. Then I'll go ahead and I'll generate what is called SAS. Once I generate, what am I going to have? Connection string, right? SAS token, and I'm going to have the blob SAS URL. So now in that application that you guys will download in the next few minutes, they are going to request for these things. So they are going to ask Purity, put in the name of the storage account you want to access, put in the name of the connection string, and put in the name of the URL. She will put those things. But if I don't want to use that method, I want her to access through the browser, I will just copy this link. I'll copy this link and I will send it to Purity, and she will be able to have access. That's how it's being done. It's how they play with security. That's the meaning of share access signature. So I'm explaining the different features for you guys to understand before we do them. The next one is called the encryption. Every data you store can be encrypted. Encrypted simply means you are hard coding your document. You are hard coding your data. It simply means if I have a data on my PC, I have to hard code that data. So even if a third party has access to my PC, that person cannot access my data. Why? Because I have encrypted the data. Most of the times when you go to your browser and you search for stuff and then they send you the page, now it is because you have created a certain credential. Now that database know that, okay, this person requesting for this thing, they'll go into their database, they'll go into AAA. AAA stands for authentication authorization, no, authentication authorization accounting. Yes, that's the full meaning, right? It's a server. I don't think I'm going to show you guys how to configure, but that's a server. So in that server, it's being used by Facebook, used by Instagram, used by TikTok, wherever you are creating an account, that's what they are using. So when you create a credential, they are going to have your information. So when you want to log into your application, when you put in your name and your password, immediately they'll take your information to that server and they'll run through the database to check if this person has created an account. That's why if you have not created an account and you want to log into something, they'll give you an error message that you cannot log in because you have no account. So go ahead and sign up. That information is coming in from the AAA server. You get? So whatever data that you have, you can hard code or you can encrypt that data. So in Azure, there are two ways to encrypt. We have the Microsoft managed key and then we have the customer managed key. Microsoft managed key simply means Microsoft is going to encrypt the data for you. Customer managed key simply means you are going to do it yourself. If you want to do it yourself, it will take you to another service that you need to create or another resource that you need to create, and the name of that resource, it is called a keyword. It is called a keyword. A keyword is where you store secret, you store password. Let me show you guys. So if I open a new tab, Let me sign in. And I'll go to search. You do not have, oops, which account is this? All right, let me change this one. This is not the account I have to be in. Okay, this one. All right. So if I go to search, there is a service or there's a resource called keyword. So I'm just going to search for keyword. It's going to load and you're going to see the guy. This is the guy keyword. I'm not going to do it. I just want to explain to you guys. You see, this guy, it helps to safeguard the cryptographic keys and other secrets used by cloud app and services. So whatever you want to secure now, this is what, as you grow in your career, you're going to realize most of the things you are doing now, you will never do them in a corporate environment. For example, privately, you see, most of the times you create users and then you create password, right? I create Purity and I created her password. I created Penda, I created his password. Corporate wise, you will not be doing those things because the industry is being threatened by hackers, right? So when you start doing those things, I can hack into your password in less than no minute, right? We will not go in depth, but I'm going to show you guys how to run a Kali Linux. Kali Linux is for security, and I'm going to show you how I can hack into Immaculate password no matter what she's going to type that I don't know, but I can access it. So for me now, to companies now, they are trying to make sure they are going out of the side of password. So even if I want to put in my credentials somewhere, I will not write out the password. For example, you see the one I generated for the user account. For example, you see when I go to Microsoft Entra ID, we'll come back to this. When I go to Microsoft Entra ID, what do we have? When I go to a user, when I click on what's the name? Adelaide. Now, when I reset the password, if I reset the password, she's going to be logged out. Let me not reset. Then a certain password will be given to me. Now, um if I want to put her into a certain application, back then I'm going to put the username and the password. But right now I'm not going to be doing such. What am I going to do? I will come into my keyboard, follow up. I'll come into my keyboard and I'll create something. I'll create it very fast, right? By default. So let me select that same resource group. Which one am I using? Let me select that same resource group. I'm going to put a name. Let me just do key store. This one follow. Let me explain something. That's why I'm creating it. Key store 123 to make it unique. All right. I'm just going to review plus create. Let me do by default and do something very fast. Um, okay. So let me go ahead and create. All right. We're creating that guy. All right. So let's wait for it to deploy. All right. It's running. After this, we are going to download the Storage Accounts Explorer before we close today. All right, you see, so we are done creating that keyword. So if I click on go to resource, if I click on go to resource, what do we have? You see, majority of stuffs are being mentioned, but I will not focus on explaining it. So I want to create a password. I want to secure that password. So if I go to object, we said keyword, it's a service or it's a resource that is being used to store keys, it's being used to store secret, it's being used to store certificate. Remember, encryption talks about keys. So when you want to encrypt using the customer managed key, you need to create a key. Now, secret simply means my password, right? I don't want to be giving people my password. I want to create a secret. So I'm going to click on the secret. I have no secret right now. So I am going to generate or I am going to import. So I'm going to use the manual method. Then I am going to put the name. For example, let's say I want to give access to a macro, so I'm going to use a macro. You get. So now you see secret value. You see, they want me to type now the password. I will then put now a password. For example, you see, I've typed a password. We are not seeing it. I'm going to confirm the password. I've confirmed the password. Set activation date, set expiration date, enabled. I'm going to leave everything as that. Then I'm going to click on create. Look at what will happen. Oops, what happened? What happened? What happened? It failed. Let me check why it failed. Okay, let's check why it failed. Oh, there's even a notification up here. Okay. You see, the operation is not allowed by role-based access control. If role assignment were recently changed, please wait several minutes for this role to become effective. So you see, when it comes to keyword, I need to define that role under my subscription, right? I need to define that role under my subscription. So I can do it under my subscription, same as I can do it here as well. How can I do it here? What they're asking from me is simple. I can come here or I can click on access policies, right? Well, I'm not explaining, but let me just show you guys something for you to know what we are doing. You see, access policies not available. So I'll need to come to this guy and I'll need to give that role so that I can be able, though I am the owner, but when it comes to keyword, it deals with security. So I can come here and I search for something related to keyword. All right, you see, we have keyword contributor. We have keyword, a lot of them, right, based on this privilege. So I can select the contributor part. I go ahead and I do next, and I go ahead and I select my account. I go ahead and I select my account. That's my account. And I go ahead and I click on select. I do next. I do review plus assign. It has been added. Then I'm going to refresh. That's just how you work with the knowledge you have so far. So my permission has been given. So if I come back under the overview, or if I want to do my secret, I can now go ahead and I do the stuff. So that was just to explain, where are we? Storage account. Okay, let me come back to the storage account and complete the explanation before we close. So you understand everything there before we start doing the practice. All right. So that's explaining encryption. So before you do this method of encryption, you have to make use of keyword. Now, the next thing we have here is the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender for Cloud is when you go in depth into security. In abbreviation, it is called CSPM. CSPM stands for Customer Managed Posture Management, right? This guy, it deals with everything you have to do when it comes to security. It will look into your resources. If there is any problem, it will bring the problem and then it will give you a recommendation how to solve that problem. They call it Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Now, you guys will not look into this one for now. This is setting your foundation. But once you go deeper, you will see this guy. The next we have is the data management. Under data management, we have storage action, right? We have storage action. Now, there is a video on what you can do under storage action. There are 4 things here. We have data protection, we have cost optimization, we have data retention, we have data tagging. This one, you go in depth. The next, we have redundancy. When we were creating the storage account, what did we select? Locally redundant storage. Under locally redundant storage, what region do we have? Central US. It simply means if Central US goes down, in this our case, what happened to the storage account? It will go down as well. But if I don't want my storage account to go down, what am I going to do? I am going to change from locally redundant storage, and I'm going to select Joe redundant storage. When I select Joe redundant storage, I'm not just going to see one location or region, I am going to see two. So if I click on save, if I click on save, give me a minute. All right, you see how many regions we have now? We have Central US, we have East US, right? One is acting as a primary, another one is acting as a secondary. That's the meaning of redundancy. So if Central US goes down, what happens? The secondary becomes the primary. You get? So I can change it back. Let me take it back to locally redundant storage. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. The next one is the data protection. The next one is the data protection. Now, under data protection, these are different stuffs we have, right? Enable backup. You can back up your blob, which simply means back up your object if you want to back up. Right now, it has not been checked. The next one, we have point in time restore for containers. It has not been checked. We have enable soft delete for blocks. This one has been marked for selling 7 days for it. Once you delete, when you delete a container, though it has been deleted, but it's going to be there for 7 days, right? It's going to be keep deleted for 7 days. You can choose to reduce the timing, the days. I can put it as 1, I can put it as 2. But when you delete a container, it's going to be there for 7 days before it is permanently deleted, just to protect your data. So all this part here, it falls under protection. Now, these two options, we are going to discuss them when we want to host a website under our storage account. For you to host a website under your storage account, you need to enable the versioning, and then you need to enable the blockchain feed. The next one we have is object replication. You see, we have object replication. We haven't created a replication rule. Object replication, when it is enabled, blobs are being copied asynchronously, right? When you create a blob or when you create a container, it is being replicated. So if you delete one, the replication can still be there. The next one is a blob inventory, right? You just see an inventory of all your blobs. The next, we have the static website. We can actually host the website. We are going to do this. Now we have a life cycle. The life cycle management, it goes under the access tier. We said there are 3 access tiers. We have the hot, we have the cold, we have the cold. We said the hot is when you want to access things frequently. The cold is when you want to access infrequently. Data that you don't access all the time, it's marked as infrequent. Then the cold, the code is when you don't access in a particular time frame. Then we have the archive. When you don't access document for more than 90 days, they are being archived. So this lifecycle management simply means I am going to set a rule to say, if I have an object under my storage and that object has been set for a life cycle, it simply means I can say after 30 days, this object should be moved from hot to archive. It should be moved from hot to cold. It should be moved from hot to cold, or it should be moved from cold to hot. That's the meaning of life cycle. So I'm defining a life cycle of how my data is going to be stored. Then the last one is the AI search, the Azure AI search. The Azure AI search is an additional resource that has been added from the AI elementary that helps you to continuously look into your storage account based on the AI part. We're going to look at this part when I'm giving you guys a little foundation of AI in Azure. And the setting part is just, okay, let me explain the setting part. How many minutes do we have? How many minutes do we have before we close? 7. Okay. So under settings, we have the configuration. So let me use today and explain uh, all the features you have under storage account. So under configuration, you see there are a lot of things based on how you created your storage account. You can change them. So you see connectivity, IPv4, right? The network is going to be set as IPv4. Then we have manage identity for SMB. It has been disabled. When we'll be talking about file share, we are going to enable this because for us to access our file share, we need to use this protocol, SMB. Then allow blob anonymous access. It is being marked as disabled by default. So if you want to enable it, you see, the reason why we have enable here is because we enable. But whenever you create a storage account, it's going to be disabled. Then we have different options. Default to Microsoft 365 authorization, disable. Maybe you want to authorize a Microsoft Entra ID user to have access to your storage account. So you're going to enable it. Now we have another option called the TLS. TLS, you can write it down. It stands for Transport Layer Service. Transport Layer Service, right now we have the version 1.2. This is another level of security that is being defined to pair services, platform as a service. So whatever platform as a service that you are creating, is going to have by default version 1.2. How is your data being transmitted for it to reach the end user? In the course of this transmission, something happens at inside. So you see, whatever happens is being done at the level of transport layer security. So that is the configuration part. You can set and you can change stuff. So you see the hot, the cool, and the cold that we're talking about. If you want to change your storage account from hot or cold or code, you can do it under configuration. Then the next, I am going to skip this one. It is advanced. It is advanced. Then I'll click on advisor recommendation. Advisor recommendation simply means they are going to look into your storage account. You see as it's refreshing. If there's any problem at the level of your storage account, it's going to give you a recommendation. It is going to tell you what to fix and how to fix that. The next we have the endpoint, right? These are the different endpoints when it comes to the different core services in storage account. Blob service, this is the endpoint. All the endpoints on how you can access them. Tomorrow, I'll explain more on it. Then we have the logs. The logs is how to protect a resource. Now, let's do this one. How to log your account. There are two types. Log simply means you want to log your resource from accidental deletion. It simply means if I bring Chris into my account, Chris can mistakenly or accidentally delete my storage account. You see, now I want to lock my account such a way that if any person is having access to my account, they cannot delete, they cannot edit, they cannot modify. How can we do it? That is being called as locks. So let's do a quick lap before we close. So let's assume I want no person to delete my storage account. What am I going to do? I am going to create a delete lock. So how can I create a delete lock? I am going to click on add. I am going to click on add. Then I am going to put the name delete store, right? Now there are two types. We have read only and then we have delete. Read only simply means whosoever is going to have access to my storage account can only read. That person cannot delete. That person cannot do anything. You can only read. The next option is the delete. Delete simply means you cannot delete. You cannot delete the storage account. So let's go ahead and do delete. So I'll click on OK. You see, create a lock. Let me click on refresh. You see a lock has been created. Now look at something. Let me delete this storage account. Let me assume I want to delete this storage account. So let me click on refresh first. You see I have delete here. If I click on delete, I copy. You see, I cannot even click the delete option. Why? Job store 26 can't be deleted because this resource or its parent has a delete lock. That's the meaning of lock. So no person can delete. If I cannot delete a resource, it simply means I cannot delete a resource group. Can we try? If I want to click on this resource group and I want to delete this resource group, right? This is my resource group. I want to delete this resource group. Will I be able to delete this resource group? Hell no. Why? Because, let me paste. Because one of the resources is having a lock on it. So let me click on delete. You see, error message, delete resource group, blah, blah, blah. They'll tell you why when you go further. The resource group job, this is locked and can't be deleted. So for me to be able to proceed by deleting, I will need to go back to my storage account. I will scroll down to where I have settings. I will click on logs and I'm going to come here and I will click on delete. I want to delete the lock. Once I delete the lock, then I can delete the storage account. I can delete my resource group. Then monitoring. Every resources that you create, you can monitor them. Whatever is happening in your resources, you can monitor. We have the insight. So there are different tools that we are going to be looking at on how to monitor resources in our account. So we have insight. This insight is going to give us an insight of what is happening in our storage account. So availability, we have 100%. Everything is good. Transaction, we have the count of 459. Success E to E latency, we have 59. So you see, this is the monitoring part they are giving to us. What is happening? Now you can monitor based on failures, right? You can monitor based on performance. You can monitor based on availability. You can monitor based on capacity. Then you can also go ahead and you set an alert based on your storage account. If there's anything going on with your storage account, you create an alert and you are going to be notified using your email or your phone number. The second is the metrics. You can have a metrics as well when it comes to your storage account. You can add a metrics. How do you want to add a metrics? Now they are going to giving you different things based on, so let me say blobs. I want to add a metrics based on blobs. I want to add a metrics based on blob capacity, right? That's a setup and it is going to, the next is a workbook. We're going to discuss workbook when we are doing Sentinel. Sentinel is a security tool that is being used in the deeper level of security. So that is advanced. Now, if I click on diagnostic settings, you are going to see the different 4 services. Now, what do you want to diagnose? I want to diagnose my blob container to see if there's any problem. So if I click on blob, these are the different things that are going to be diagnosed. How do you want to diagnose? Diagnosing a blob or a storage account, you need to bring what is known as a log analytic workspace. Log analytic workspace is a service that you use to capture everything that you are looking for. Then the last one, we have logs. If you look at logs, they'll ask you to create a log analytic workspace. That is a chapter on its own. Then the last one before we go, it is called automation. Automation simply means instead for me going ahead and creating a storage account, creating a blob container, or doing a file share, or doing a queue manually, all those things I can create them using automation. Now, the first part of automation, we see we have tasks, right? Automation tasks that I can go ahead and I schedule them. The second, we have what is known as export template. I can export a template. It looks like this. The language of what you are seeing on my screen, it is called a JSON language. JSON language stands for JavaScript Object Notation, where I am going to put in the stuff I want them to be created. So all this script you are seeing here is what we have been doing so far. This is what you have been seeing here. It is easier to explain. This first one, it is just explaining it is explaining the schema, right? It is giving the content version. It is giving the name of the storage account. So this one, it is simply explaining the storage account. And it goes further by explaining the different stuff we have been doing in the form of JavaScript. Do you need to be writing all these things? No. So if I want to send this, for example, I want to tell Pen that go ahead and create a storage account with all the stuffs I have done similar to me. I'll go ahead and I'll copy the script and I will send it to him and I'll tell him how to run it. That will take us to infrastructure as a code. Okay, so we are going to end here. We have covered everything, right? I've explained everything. So that is the summary of storage account. So tomorrow now we are going to be doing just the labs and we are going ahead. Knowing too well, I have explained all the things you need to know when it comes to storage account. What you are supposed to download, I am going to send the link. Let me just generate the link now and send before we close. So we need to download Microsoft Storage Explorer. Microsoft Storage Explorer, right? So let me look for the link and send it to you guys. Microsoft Storage Explorer, I think this one. All right. Let me see if it's going to take me. Okay, Microsoft Storage Explorer zip. I'm going to pick up the zip. Let me click on download. All right, you see the link. Download manually. It has been downloaded from my side already, but I want to send you guys the link. Download link. Let me copy this one. All right, I'll go to Discord. I'll send it there. I'll go to Discord under projects, Microsoft Storage Explorer. Purity, why laughing? And I'll paste and I will do enter. There we go. That's the link. So you click on that link and it is going to download. Once you download, we are going to use it tomorrow. Yes, if you have it, good and fine. No need, I already have it. Whose account do you want to hack? Immaculate. All right, that's not something we are doing now. That's when we go into Linux. Okay, so we are going to end here today. And then we are going to, when are we entering Linux? I think tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to create a virtual machine running Linux. I just wanted to explain storage account to you guys because you need to know. Linux is an operating system that we are going to be doing some magic stuff inside. So I'll create a virtual machine and tomorrow we are going to create a virtual machine and then we are going to start playing with it a little bit. But go to your Cisco Academy, go to Linux and start studying Linux. Know what Linux is all about. When it was being created, the founders, even though they're not going to help you, but go about, know the history, know the structure of Linux, know the different distribution of Linux. Tomorrow you will hear me talking about CentOS, Red Hat, Rocky, Debian, Kali, and many more. All those different names, they have their different stuff they are doing. Like for security, we're talking about Kali, right? Hacking, cryptography, and all those things. So you need to know them. But in the Cisco Academy, what you guys are going to be using to study in that Cisco Academy is going to be Ubuntu. Ubuntu is for students and Ubuntu is user friendly. So you can easily learn on it. So make sure you have Linux as part of the resources that you're using to learn. You can also open this, another resource I'm giving to you guys again today. It's called the Linux Academy. If you go to the Linux Academy, you need to create an account. The Linux Foundation, you see training. So if I open up this account, this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. They have a whole lot of stuff. They have everything about Linux. They have it here. This is the Linux Foundation. So you see, this is Linux. There are a whole lot of stuff. If you want resources, these are resources. Cybersecurity skills. If you want to learn stuff, let me click on the catalog. If I go to the catalog, all right, you see, these are stuff. These ones are exam. If you want to study for a particular certification, you have them here. So these are just a lot of stuff that you can play with. So nothing more to add. I will see you all tomorrow. But before we go, any question? Any question? All right, perfect. Chris is already having it. That's a screenshot. All right, good one. All right. Any question? It's very straight to download and install. Installation, just next, and the rest. If you have any issue with the download and installation, reach out to Chris. But it is a very straightforward installation, no complication. Okay, if there is no question, then you all enjoy the rest of your day.